Retire the good woman. What if the woman you've been searching for was never lost? What if she was just buried? She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted. The irony of that quote is that it was meant to silence her. Instead, it named something every woman already knows in her bones. You persist, even when the world builds systems designed to make you smaller, quieter, easier. You persist. But here is what nobody talks about. Sometimes you become the system. Sometimes the silencing does not come from the outside. Sometimes you are the one keeping yourself small. And that is what we need to talk about today. The woman you buried. I was the good eldest daughter. I played a role that made me easier to raise, easier to commit to, easier to marry. I was the one who held it together, who kept the peace, who made sure everyone else was comfortable before I even considered what I needed. I was not weak. I want to be clear about that. But I was passive, easily convinced, easily pushed, easily shamed. And here is the thing about that kind of woman. The world loves her. She is praised. She is called mature, selfless, and grounded. She is the woman everyone points to and says, "See, why can't you be more like her?" What they do not tell you is that she is exhausted, that somewhere underneath all that goodness, she has forgotten the sound of her own voice. Not because she lost it, but because she was taught, very early, that her voice was an inconvenience. Maybe it was religion that taught you to be humble to the point of disappearing. Maybe it was your culture, where a good woman meant a quiet one. Maybe it was a family system that only rewarded you when you made yourself useful. Maybe it was a relationship where love felt conditional on how little space you took up. All of it had a purpose. All of it helped you survive. I need you to hear that before we go any further. The woman who shrank herself was not foolish. She was brilliant. She read the room. She learned the rules. She adapted. Survival is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of intelligence. But you are not just trying to survive anymore. You are ready to live. The shedding. There is a reason the snake has always been a symbol of spiritual awakening. When a snake outgrows its skin, it does not mourn it. It does not apologize for needing more room. It does not ask permission. It simply sheds. It moves forward, raw and new, into the next version of itself. And the old skin, the one that once protected it, that once fit perfectly, is left behind without ceremony. You are in the middle of a shedding. That is why everything feels uncomfortable right now. That is why the life that once felt safe now feels suffocating. That is why the relationships that once felt like home now feel like cages. That is why you are standing at the edge of something you cannot name yet, looking out into territory that feels terrifying and necessary all at once. You have not broken. You have outgrown. Research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, found that the quality of our relationships, and more specifically, our sense of self within those relationships, is one of the greatest predictors of how well we age, how healthy we stay, and how fulfilled we feel. Women who suppressed their identities in the service of relationships did not thrive. They endured. You were built for more than endurance. What got buried and why. Let us name the layers, because they are real and they deserve to be seen. Society told you that your value lives in what you produce. Your body, your labor, your availability, your pleasantness. From the time you were old enough to understand what it meant to be a girl, you were being shaped into something easier to consume. Patriarchy rewarded your softness and punished your power, not always loudly. Sometimes it was just the way a room went quiet when you spoke with confidence. Sometimes it was the way you were called aggressive for the exact thing a man would be called decisive for. Sometimes it was the slow, subtle lesson that desire yawned desire was dangerous, And the safest version of you was the one who wanted nothing too loudly. Culture handed you a script. What a woman looks like, how she speaks, what she prioritizes, how much she weighs, how she wears her hair, whether her home is clean enough, whether her children are well behaved enough, and whether her husband is proud enough. Culture is not always malicious. Sometimes it genuinely believes it is protecting you, but protection that requires you to disappear is not protection. It is a beautiful cage. Religion, at its worst, used devotion as a tool for suppression. Told you that surrender was holy, that your needs were selfish, that good women serve and sacrifice and ask for nothing in return, because reward waits in the afterlife, and wanting something now means you lack faith. Here is what I know to be true. You absorbed all of it. Not because you were naive, because you were human, because we all take in the water we swim in without realizing we are drowning. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Alice Walker. She is waking up. You are reading this because something in you already knows. Maybe you woke up one morning and felt like a stranger in your own life. Maybe you said yes when you meant no and felt something crack inside you. Maybe you looked in the mirror and could not remember the last time you did something just because you wanted to. Maybe someone called you by your name, and for a split second you thought, "Who is that?" That is not a breakdown. That is a breakthrough trying to happen. The woman who is waking up is disoriented. Yes. She is standing on the edge of everything she was told to be, and the ground feels uncertain beneath her feet. She might be grieving. The relationships she has to redefine, the version of herself she has to release, the safety of smallness she is choosing to leave behind. But she is awake. And an awake woman is the most powerful force in any room. She is starting to ask questions she was never allowed to ask. What do I actually want? What do I believe, separate from what I was told to believe? What does my life look like when I stop performing and start living? Those questions are not a crisis. They are the beginning of your real life. The woman you are becoming. She is discerning. She no longer says yes from fear or obligation. She has learned the difference between generosity and self-erasure, and she chooses generosity, but on her own terms. She is self-contained. She does not need to be everything to everyone in order to feel like she is enough. She has stopped leaking her energy into every relationship, every room, every person who reaches for her. She has learned that her presence is a gift, not a given. She is intentional. She moves slowly enough to choose. She has stopped running on autopilot, stopped letting old conditioning make her decisions. She asks herself, is this mine? Or was this handed to me? She is sensual and sacred. She has reclaimed the right to exist in her body with pleasure, with ease, with reverence. She no longer treats herself like a machine to be maintained. She treats herself like someone worth knowing. She is not chasing. She is attracting. Because when a woman knows who she is, she stops shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. And she is dangerous to every system that was built on her silence. Not dangerous in violence, dangerous in truth, dangerous in clarity, dangerous in the way that a woman who has finally found herself refuses to pretend otherwise for anyone's comfort. Come back to her. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about going back. Back through all the layers. Back through the conditioning and the expectations and the self-doubt and the suppression. Back past the version of you that learned to perform, the version that learned to shrink, the version that learned to survive. Back to the woman who existed before she was taught to make herself small. She is still there. She has always been there. Waiting. Not with impatience, but with the quiet confidence of something that knows it cannot be destroyed. The shedding is not punishment. It is an initiation. Every layer you release, every old story, every borrowed belief, Every relationship that required you to disappear is the old skin falling away. It served you. Honor it for that. And then leave it on the ground behind you. Because the woman on the other side of this is not fragile. She is not passive. She is not easily convinced, easily pushed, or easily shamed. She walks in her truth. She stands in her power. She takes up exactly the space she was always meant to occupy. She is unapologetically herself. She is you. She has always been you. And you are ready to come home.